Hi, I'm Greg Lefebvre, creator and host of the Compulsive Storyteller podcast. Welcome to another segment of Pass the Mic, where once or twice a month we invite a talented guest with a great story to join us on the pod and tell their story. I'm excited to introduce today's guest, Heide Hatry, an incredibly accomplished artist with whom I've been friends for over 20 years. Her work's been shown all over the world, including some very eccentric and unconventional places like Mona, located in Tasmania, Australia. Many people have written about her work in 4 different monographs and countless articles. She's collaborated with many significant thinkers, writers, poets, and artists, including Steven Pinker, Franz Wright, and Carolee Schneemann. She's also created the polarbearfest.org and invites everybody to come out to the great lawn of Central Park if there's enough snow to make a polar bear and demonstrate the participants' unhappiness with the way environmental policies are being carried out. Welcome to the show, Heide.
Hey, Greg. Very happy to be here.
Good. So to begin with, tell us your story about when the police found body parts in your refrigerator.
So I was working in my studio and I heard obnoxious knocking on my door. I went downstairs and on my way I heard an enormous loud noise. I hurry up and see what is going on, and somebody had knocked over a bookshelf that was in front of my window, and a man dressed in a black uniform and with a gun was trying to get into my apartment. And at the same time, I heard somebody yelling, "Open the door, now, this is the police." And if I didn't hear that, I think I would have thought somebody is going to rob the house.
Right.
But when I realized that this is the police, I was completely annoyed and pulled open the door and yelled, "How dare you to knock over my bookshelf and yet let yourself into my apartment?" And they were totally rude and said, "You probably know why we are here." And I said, "I have absolutely no idea. This must be a misunderstanding. You cannot come in my apartment this way." And I stood in the door and blocking the entrance. And a female officer came from behind to the front and said, "Yes, we can." And she grabbed me by my arm, and 5 heavily armed police officers pushed just back and past us to enter my apartment. And I saw then that there were lots of police officers in SWAT uniforms.
SWAT uniforms, yeah.
SWAT uniforms outside and surrounding the house. And the 5 policemen inside started searching around frantically. And suddenly one of them yelled, "I found it!" And they went downstairs. The police dragged me down as well, the woman, and still holding my arm tightly. And although this situation was totally scary, but the officers were completely upset when they opened the freezer. I heard them horrified, and I heard these disgusting noises. What they believed to see was a flayed baby and a flayed human head and a decayed head of a woman. One asked suspiciously, "Can you explain this?" And I said, "Yes." And I was not scared anymore because it was clear this is artwork. And I said, "This is easy to explain. This is my artwork." And I described to them that I freeze huge pieces of meat and then I carve them into shapes of beings, for example, in the shape of a baby or a human bust. And when I wanted to pick up the decayed woman's head, the police officer pulled me back, and I said, I just want to show you that this is a clay armature, and I cover it with untreated pigskin and put pig eyes in it and meat for the mouth, and everything is from the slaughterhouse, and it's all not real. I mean, it's real material, and that is why it looks so real, but it's not what you think. And I use pigskin because it actually looks like human skin. And pig eyes, they look like real human eyes. And they even come in the same colors as ours. And I use beef and in the shape of a mouth. It looks just like a human mouth. And then I started to get scared again because it seemed to get really serious. She held me tight on my arm, and the officers looked at me like I'm a serial killer. And I said, you know what, there's a monograph about my work, and I have it upstairs, and I just get it. And she said, you are not going anywhere. And the police officer grabbed me even harder. And I said, come on, look a little closer. You must be able to see what I'm telling you is true. And they wouldn't. They were absolutely convinced that I'm a criminal. And I described one of them where to find copies of my book. And when he came back, so he got it and came back with almost a smile on his face. In any case, it was not so crazy looking anymore. And I know I wouldn't accidentally be killed by the police that day.
Wow. What a close call. So what I'm thinking is maybe we should talk a little bit about your life as an artist.
Yeah, where do you want to start?
Well, let's see. When did you first start making art?
So I grew up on a factory farm and pig farm, which may explain my affinity to the material. And these heads, which were in the freezer, they were documented in a book which was called Heads and Tails. And I made 27 of those heads and invited writers whom I admire to make them alive in writing a fictional story about them. So that has become a beautiful book of short stories. Nevertheless, it wasn't received that well. People freaked out at a book signing, for example. Somebody turned the book around so that you wouldn't see the cover.
I think I was at that book signing. And does the cover have it has one of your faces up close, but there's also flies around the mouth. Yeah. And I found it intriguing because I know you and I know your work, but I'm sure that some people would have a hard time accepting it.
They freaked out. They looked at me like they thought I'm crazy, and they ran out of the gallery and were really uncomfortable. But that was the problem. I wanted to communicate. I wanted to make people aware of how we treat animals, for example, or how we use and abuse nature. And I was thinking, what can I do to not freak people out, still address what I want to address? And I had the idea to use something what everybody likes, and came up with the idea of flowers. Everybody likes flowers.
Mm-hmm.
And they make me even happy. And I was always wondering why. And that was another reason why I made that book, in which I use, again, waste material from the slaughterhouse, but this time like innards, offal, tongues, hearts, kidneys, but also sex organs.
Right.
And as you know, the blossom of a flower is the sex organ of the flower. And maybe, therefore, my awful flowers look so real.
Which they do. I mean, I have the book, and they definitely look real.
I also gave them scientific names, scientific Latin names, so that every doubt whether this was a real flower or not would be pushed aside. And when you translate the Latin words, you know what material I used to make the flower.
And the book is called?
Not a Rose.
Right.
And I have, for that book, I have also collaborated with people. I have invited 100 prominent intellectuals, writers and artists like Jonathan Safran Foer, Anthony Hayden Guest, Donna Haraway, Lucy Lippert, Kate Millett, Avital Ronell, Peter Singer.
That's a very impressive list, yeah.
100 people in it, and they kind of address the question of the flower from a multiplicity of perspectives, including anthropology, philosophy, psychology, sociology, philosophy, philology, botany, neuroscience, art history, gender studies, physics. They came just all from different places.
You were pretty happy with the essays you got.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's really beautiful. And if you have that book and read all the essays, you have really an idea about flowers. So many perspectives in it, like, for example, about the smell of flowers, how smell actually works scientifically, and why that has an influence on our being. It's really quite interesting. This was kind of ending my work with skin, and after that I had a totally different approach. I was very much suffering because I had lost two really important people in my life, and I started a project which is now called Icons in Ash. And for that I made portraits out of cremated remains of the people I lost. The interesting thing was that it totally consoled me, and I then offered to make these portraits for other people as well, and they had the same experience.
No, I've seen them, and they're quite beautiful, and they're quite realistic, and you almost can't believe the process you used to make them. So that's very interesting about the portraits. And I also know that you've started this very interesting organization called the Polar Bear Fest. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. I noticed when I did the Icons in Ash portraits that it is really rewarding to make other people happy. And I noticed that again in February 2021, when the vaccine was not out, but everybody was very, very frustrated with the
situation. Yeah.
Situation, exactly. And my daughter was one of them, of the frustrated people, and I thought I'd make a little cat out of snow for her, take a photo and send it to her. And instead of making a cat, it turned into a polar bear. Had two round ears, and I thought, how sweet to make a white bear, and it looks just like a polar bear. And then I checked how a polar bear exactly looks so that I would be
anatomically correct. Yeah. So.
Exactly. And then I realized the devastating situation of polar bears. I mean, we have ruined their possibility to live in the way they always lived.
Yes.
And therefore, I thought I use this to make people aware of that, and also to address climate change in a kind of fun, community-building way. And now it turned into what you said, Polar Bear Fest. And you can see a website which is called polarbearfest.org. And it's an idea that we come together on the Grand Lawn of Central Park and build snow bears together.
If there's a big snowstorm, yeah.
Snow, and if there's not snow, it shows that we really did a bad job cutting everything. And the idea is that building snow bears is basically a creative demonstration, our version of a march demanding an end to corporate military state admission of greenhouse gases. And I mean, what I really want is to demonstrate for different policies. And the nice thing, what I like about it, is that something positive is connected with something what we should care about. And
Right.
I think if you do something together, if you make something, if you create something, if you do it together with other people, it's a community building thing where you help each other to build the bear, where you bring different things, where you might bring a thermos of tea and share
Right.
it with other people
Right.
when you are out in the cold and build them. I think that would be just wonderful. I also invite people who make music or do performances in any way. It's supposed to be a real fest, a place where people get together, some build bears, some inform about what we can do. It's as a demonstration, instead of marching through the city and saying, we hate this. What I really like about is the idea. I want this to be not only in New York. I want everywhere on the world people to build snow bears,
Right.
which look like polar bears. And every bear you see, I want to stand for. Here is somebody who is really unhappy about what is going on in this world.
Right.
And we want to change it.
I think it's a great idea. So listen, Heide, before we close, can you maybe tell listeners several things, how they can get your books, and also maybe give some, you already gave some book titles, and could you share maybe your website or anything else you want, and how people can join the Polar Bear Fest too?
Yeah, okay. So my website is my name, Heide Hatry.com.
So it's HeideHatry.com, right?
That's correct. And there's a shop, you can order it right in my shop. The books are called Skin,
Great.
Heads and Tails, Not a Rose, Icons in Ash. These are the bigger monographs, but there are more books there as well. And the other website I made is for Icons in Ash, where you can actually order a memorial portrait for your loved one. I also do pets, and we are now also on Etsy. And then the other website we have is polarbearfest.org. And there you can sign up. You can. It would be really great if people shared their email address with us, or how we can get in contact with them. So when it snows, that we can inform them that there's enough snow on the ground. Please, if you make a bear, take a photo and send it to us, or take a photo and share it on our Instagram page, Polar Bear Fest.
So Heide, thank you so much for doing this. It's been great fun.
Very happy to be here.
Are you ready to tell your own story on The Compulsive Storyteller? We're launching a new segment of guest storytelling, and we want to hear your stories. Email a voice recording to hello@thecomPulsiveStoryteller.com. I'll play selected stories on upcoming episodes. Try to be as clear as possible in your recording, and we reserve the right to lightly edit them for length and clarity. Leave your name or contact information in your voicemail or email, and let us know if you'd like the story to be anonymous. I can't wait to hear from you. The Compulsive Storyteller is now co-produced by Greg Lefebvre and Fadia Montserrat, who's also arranged the music and created the special effects. Emily Ramon does design, research, editing, and marketing. Peter Kokoma has made our theme music and for many seasons co-produced the show with me. If you enjoyed this week's episode, let us know. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook @The Compulsive Storyteller, and we'd love to hear from you. This podcast is independently produced, so we really appreciate all your help and support. Share the show with your friends, subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and please leave a review. You can also check out our website, thecompulsivestoryteller.com, for more information. Thanks for listening, and if you didn't like this one, the next one will be another story. All characters and events portrayed in this podcast are based on my truth, with some names and facts changed for privacy. The conversations and dialogues are based on my best memory, but are not word-for-word recreations.